Welcome back, everyone. I'm Nick Caniglio.
And I'm Marnie Stockman, and this is the Lead It Like Lasso podcast, a Ted Lasso rewatch podcast. We are the authors of Lead It Like Lasso, a leadership book for life, your life.
And this podcast is an extension of many of the elements outlined in our book. We invite you to join us as we take a deep dive into each episode and explore the leadership principles as they play out in the series. And for today's episode, we're diving into season 3, episode 9. I'm going to try this. La Locker Room Aux Folles.
Perfect. And for the first time this season, we are welcoming a friend, Dan Wolfe. So Dan is a program coordinator in school improvement and accountability at Pasco County Schools in Florida. He's also a big Ted Lasso fan, and we got to know him through a district-wide book study of Lead It Like Lasso. Super humbled that you all have done that. And going in on your second year of that, Dan is also the author of his own book, Becoming the Change, 5 Essential Elements to Being Your Best Self. So thanks, Dan. How'd we do?
Oh, I did great. No, I appreciate the intro and I appreciate the invite. And as you said, huge fan of Ted Lasso. I actually, a little bit of backstory. I had one of my teachers when I was an assistant principal at one of the schools in our county, and she had said, "So have you ever seen Ted Lasso?" And I'm like, "No, what's it?" She said, "Because between your dad jokes and just your mannerisms, he's totally you." So then that's when just kind of my wife and I sat down and started watching it. And yeah, I said, yeah, I said, if there was ever the nicest compliment, that was it right there. I said, definitely would want to be in his class for sure.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm thinking that maybe we might have to reconvene another time and have a little dad joke off, because I think Marnie and Dan you guys would go head to head. It would be pretty fun.
The listener viewership and everything might go down though after a couple of them. All of a sudden be nothing but dead air.
It wouldn't hear. So awesome. So let's talk about, we're just going to give our take on the episode real quick, which, by the way, one of my favorite episodes of the entire
Well, it's probably
series.
One of the favorites. I know one of the scenes is your favorite of all times, right?
Yeah, no doubt. I'm sure we'll talk about that. But high level, couple items. The team, they're on a hot streak, but it needs some drama and conflict as they attempt to win their 8th game in a row.
Roy is trying hard to be less stuck in his own ways. It's kind of adorable.
He sure is. And Rebecca, in another great scene, actually shows why she is that boss-ass bitch in her dealings with Roy.
Yes, she is. And so Colin's secret is finally out. We've tried not to give that away on the last 2 episodes, right? As the tension between he and Isaac really hits its peak for sure.
Yeah. And then there are a couple other lesser storylines important to the show, but we find out that Keely and Jack have finally indeed broken up.
They're done.
And then we also start to see more evidence of Nate, him following that redemption arc that we've talked about the last couple episodes. So,
yeah.
Dan, as Ted Lasso yourself, what did we miss? What are the big items? There's a lot to dig into. We just gave fluffy points on those, but were there any other big things in this episode that you thought we missed?
Well, I think definitely with each of the characters, they had their own. What it kind of showed, the overarching was just that everybody has their own processing time, and no matter what they're going through, you see the example with where Keely's constantly texting Jack but not getting a response back. I like to refer that as to the generation of now, because if they don't get a response within the first 5 seconds of an email or whatever, they're like, "What's going on?" Yeah. And you just saw that she was so desperate that she had 10 or 12 of them without giving any maybe Jack needed time to process, and everybody handles those things differently. And then I know Ted came in and just said, "Ain't nothing to it but to do it." And then I said, so that stuck out. That made me laugh within there, where he was just coming in with his humorism and everything within there. I think also one of the things, as you had said, Ted wanted to skip the press conference to go ahead and talk with his son's teacher, with his ex-wife and everything about that. And it was nice to see Rebecca say, "No problem, Ted," because as leaders and things, you always tell people to put family first, but then it's your actions that really, and she really just showed that to go ahead and say, definitely gave that grace within there. But that's when, Roy dropped the ball because he was given a directive from Rebecca. And lo and behold, it was total chaos because it wasn't him that did it. It was Beard.
or Beard who didn't do it, as the case may be.
Well, the topic got on the pop culture, and as soon as you're comparing guitarists, that's where it got derailed. And then that was just a funny moment because he's usually so calm, cool, and collected. And when it's
all fired up,
he became unhinged. So
So let's start because you brought it up with the conversation between Rebecca and Roy, and it started out kind of funny because she had first asked Roy to do it, and he's like, "F no," and then slowly but surely he says he's going to do it, and of course, as you said, he ends up not doing it. He gets Beard to do it, but I thought that Rebecca's challenge to Roy when she brought him in after finding out that he didn't do the press conference and really calling him out. I think she said something to the effect of, is this the plan for the rest of your life? You're just going to walk away from everything that isn't fun and isn't easy? And he said, I just want to be left alone. And she says, you're way more than that. Woe is me. And I'm thinking to myself, my goodness, what a great, Rebecca doesn't spend much time injecting herself and calling people out on things, but she picks the right time to do it. And I just thought that was really powerful. And it brought me back to, times that I should have done it, that I haven't done it, but more importantly, times when other people have done that to me. And it really shook my world and got me to think from a different perspective. So I'm just curious if either of you had a different take on that, a new take, or did I miss something with that? Because I thought that was one of the most powerful moments from this episode.
Go ahead, Dan. I'll save mine.
Okay. I think in different parts of my career and everything, because no matter how confident we may appear on the outside, we all have our internal, questioning and things. Can I really do this? Do I, can I really overcome and take that challenge on? And I think we need those people in our lives to go ahead and establish that. And I don't think that kind of conversation could have ever come from Ted, because he would have come from a different angle within it. But I think because of the abrasiveness that Roy has, you saw Rebecca have that, and it kind of just, I think, shocked him in a sense that to be spoken in that manner and basically say that, she was right. I mean, he didn't really admit it, but he couldn't really deny it either when he was. So I think he was caught a little off guard because she wasn't going to let him off the hook. And maybe because he was always a star player in the past in his whole career, maybe that's what's always happened, is because he was the captain or whatever else. Oh, we'll let it slide or whatever. And she was holding him to it. And now it was time to either put up or shut up.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. And I just along those lines, I think one thing that I took note of is it's really hard to say something like that to someone who's never shown any vulnerability, because they always have walls. They always put up walls. And to me, those have been the most difficult people to get through to, because they just don't put themselves in a position to be spoken to like that. And I found it a little ironic that as we started out the show, where Roy was trying to get out of his own way to do things differently, right? That they were kind of showing him trying to be more vulnerable, and they have been, honestly, for the last couple episodes. And they picked this time to really have that hard conversation, because I think that models real life. I think people who lack vulnerability really put up such mechanisms around themselves that it's hard for somebody else to have a direct conversation with them.
And also, the growth isn't linear. So they've been showing a progression for him, but you're not going to get it right all of the time, right? So he kind of slips back. So I had 3 notes on that. So you mentioned the woe is me quote, and it was woe is me. It's just so ponderous, which I think for some reason that just cracked me up. And that reminded me very much of, at some point you have to stop admiring the problem and do something with it. So I'm going backwards. So prior to that, it was Roy's being Roy and Rebecca's being Rebecca, right? And that I felt like was a prime example of when your strength becomes your weakness. So this was a strength for each of them, typically being really blunt and bold. But for Roy, it has now turned into a weakness, and Rebecca needs to use it as her strength. And sometimes you do have to match fire with fire. And I think that is what it took in this one. And then the comment on when Rebecca first asked Roy to do this, right? It was F no. Why can't Ted do it? I'd love to. That was his progression. And I felt like he was going through the stages of grief quickly in that conversation. So
Roy's own way, right?
But I mean, I think all of those are elements that play out in everybody's leadership in their own life, in their own job, all of the time.
Yep. One last thing with this one. The other thing that I loved is at the very end of the conversation when Roy says, "Is that all?" and Rebecca says, "Yeah, for now." And Roy walks out of the room. Rebecca was so pleased with herself, and it's just a reminder. It's like she got through to him, and she knew it,
Yeah.
And leading people is so stressful all the time, but the reward when you get through to somebody and you help somebody, it's a high at times, and I love that they kind of showed that in this particular episode.
It's a real bucket filler for sure. Yeah. And just like you had said before with the vulnerability, I think often, and in a lot of things when I'm supporting in my position, training new teachers and things like that, I said, everyone's looking for perfection. I said, you're never going to get it. I said, you basically have 180 day performances with your kids. Not all of them are going to be a standing ovation, but you have you reflect on it, what went well, what didn't. And you're on the next night or the next day, so to speak, because they'll be back. The audience will be back there. But I think it's amazing how when we were younger, we were told it was okay to make mistakes, to be vulnerable. And somewhere along the lines,
we lost that.
Perfection. And I know even just seeing the things with social media, you've got all the things with filters and things. Everybody's striving to be that perfection instead of just being that authentic self. And I think that's what this episode really did within that, is to be able to peel back that curtain, kind of like in Wizard of Oz, to be able to see the wizard. So, and actually when Roy had it peeled back, he actually saw himself and what he could be.
Yeah. It's interesting that you picked perfectionism today. I got to visit a class who was using our book, The Business of You, and the students were coming up with their core values, and they were partnered up and having conversations, and they had to talk about each other's strengths and weaknesses. It was interesting because the group that was paired up, 2 guys, one of them said, the one guy said, well, George here, he's an impatient perfectionist. And then he said, John is really careful and cautious and no risk taking. And I thought, at the extreme, you both need each other desperately, because that is not going to work well at either end, right. To the extreme, again, your strength becoming your weakness. So yeah, that's interesting.
Absolutely.
All right, Dan, you're next up. What's another element of this show that you want to take a deeper dive into?
I thought it was interesting where, when they went ahead and featured Nate's team and everything, and they had the bubbles in the beginning and they're floating around, after seeing the episode and everything, I felt it was like Nate's bubble and what the world he thought was ready to burst, because that facade he was living in, and I make a lot of correlations to a big Star Wars fan. I feel like, Rupert is Emperor Palpatine.
Yes, he is.
and Nate is Anakin, and the whole kind of dynamic. And then where Anakin continued to fall down that way and became Darth Vader. Hopefully that's no spoiler for anybody that hasn't seen Star Wars. But I think that's just, he realized what he was becoming. And I think what he was just able to go ahead and see, it just served as that foreshadowing, that like I said, that Wonder Boy bubble was ready to burst. And Rupert was really showing his true colors. Well, we knew all along, but he finally was able to look past things. And I think Jade helped a lot with that too.
And I was just thinking, and I wonder if it was only through Jade that Nate could get there, right? On his own, he doesn't really have the self-esteem to, he always felt like he was less than, but when it came to hurting Jade, he was able to see like, oh no, nope. Okay, I get it. I can see now how this would hurt her. This would hurt me. And kind of saw the real Rupert then.
It's funny you say that because we talk about identifying your non-negotiables, and it's finally we have found the non-negotiable for Nate, which is, I'm not going to hurt Jade during this whole process. I can play this game all you want. I could be cocky, Rupert, and we can win without a goalie. I'll do the boys' night, but when it finally came to the point where it would have hurt Jade, he finally hit that non-negotiable. Which he may or may not have known. I think that we talk about the importance of identifying what those are, so you can pretty much benchmark yourself and understand how you're going to react. And I think the show did a great job of kind of pointing that out for us.
That's super interesting because so Nate doesn't know his authentic self, and Jade is nothing but authentic. I mean, she met Rupert. It's worthwhile to meet you. Okay, I already wanted to high five her on that. Right. He seems very wealthy. Like that's not, she's just stating facts because if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. He's nice, right? So her authenticity is helping. I think us, mirror it against Nate's lack of, or learning to.
Yeah, absolutely. And then adding on to that, like when she first introduced herself, as Jade and everything, she said it's short for jaded. and I said, so I laughed with that. And then we know that means you're tired, bored, or lacking enthusiasm within there. And when you're having too much of something. And so I felt like, again, that just laid one of those Easter eggs or those eggs that Nate kind of picked up on. He was getting tired of the act from Rupert. And just his tactics and things like that, and he was starting to just feel used, for him, and notice that Rupert is really a womanizer, and it just really just kind of painted that out when they went for that where he thought he was just going to meet up for a drink, and it turned out to be like a double date, and I was just proud of Nate to just make that decision to walk away and realize what he had. And that took a lot to go ahead and do that. But I think that just really, it was a turning point to the good side, or whatever you want to say within it, for sure.
Yeah, I think the good side is fair to say.
All right, Marnie, you want to give us one more?
I can give us one more because I think that's all I have is one more.
You got more than one more. I know you got more than one more.
For when Isaac McAdoo, he lost it in the game, and the commentators talk about when that McAdoo looked like he had lost concentration. Colin Hughes was off his game, and that is what stress looks like when you have internal stress that comes out in some external way. You are off your game, and they've got commentators telling you that. Whereas the rest of us, that's what we have kids for, or whoever.
No, I mean, absolutely, and I'm going to take that to kind of the next scene. Well, not the next scene because we had halftime, right? And a whole lot happened at halftime. But
I forgot. Those are the rest of my notes. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah. But the conversation that Roy had with Isaac moved me. It reminded me so much of life, right? He kind of reiterates very similar messaging during the press conference, but when he tells Isaac, I don't know what happened out there, but what I do know is whatever it was isn't what you're angry about. And I think back to all the times where there are external stresses that are put upon you as an individual, whether you're in a leadership position or not, but you take it out on somebody else. And so many times you may not realize that you're doing it, but for sure the people around you have a hard time realizing what the heck's going on because they don't know. So I love that they just explicitly call that out. And then I also love, and I'm just going to say this and I'll stop here, that we've got Will in the background, right?
Again.
He's right, because, things he's like saying, get mad about little snowflakes on a mountain and it turns into an avalanche. And I was like, oh my God, Will is turning into Higgins. They went to
That's
Amsterdam.
what I thought,
Sudden,
yes.
Will is Higgins. And then I thought about it. And I'm like, Roy is kind of becoming Ted. And Rebecca is becoming Nora's perception of Rebecca. It's like they've, in this one episode, it kind of hit me all of a sudden, like people are becoming other characters as part of their normal arc. I just thought that was super cool, the way, and funny, with Will in the background that just said the most Higgins-like thing possible.
And just to see that connectedness between each of those characters too, because Isaac thought that Roy was going to yell at him right away, just thinking, and actually was surprised. Roy was just there to listen and to go ahead and be able to let him talk about things. And then I thought it was quite interesting with the locker room when Colin did announce to the team and everything that, he was gay and everything. And then we find out how humor can lighten the mood, where Ted tries to refer to, using the Denver Broncos as an example of one of his friends being a fan. And I said, what's funny is I am a Denver Broncos fan. So I was laughing even more about that because I said it just was, well played with some of those things. But even just with the humor, like Ted even said, well, the team we're playing today, it's kind of like a law firm. And then Higgins tried to come in with something and said, the fan was removed. It was my dad, or whatever, and tried to be funny, but nobody laughed. So it's like,
read the room, Higgins. That's what he said to himself.
The timing. You got to say, do I go ahead and say it now, or is now and you got to know who your audience is too, because some might not find that humor at all. And this was not one of those times, but it was kind of funny to see where it worked and where it didn't. So, but I think it really, again, brought everybody together. But I loved what Ted said about that, it's not so much, we don't care about it. And he corrected them and he says, no, we do care about it.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. And again, it's just so powerful in those kind of words. Just that simple twist just puts things in the right perspective and gets people to understand, okay, no one is alone on an island. We are a team, a unit, a family. And that's in any business organization. It should function as one, like a well-oiled machine. And that's what you just could kind of see the culture. And they were all embracing it themselves. And Ted just led the way. He was more the facilitator of that knowledge.
Yeah. We don't not care. I remember him saying, that was, he got there eventually.
Right.
And although I feel sorry for you winning all your Super Bowls as a Denver Bronco fan, I remember that they beat. I'm a Jets fan, so you should really feel sorry for me. I know that first Super Bowl in '98, we had our chance. We were up 10-0 at halftime in the championship game, and it didn't really work.
Not that he holds a grudge.
It still bothers you a little bit there, Nick. So I'm sorry. My brother-in-law is a Jets fan, so I get it.
So you get it. I mean,
yes, I totally get it.
It's a fraternity of
and we don't not
disappointment.
Care. It's a fraternity of disappointment.
There we go. Yeah, no. But that
what's the Greek symbol for that one? Frowny face emoji.
Yeah, something like that. What else do you got, Dan? Anything? Did we?
See. I think it was Roy's press conference, and it's just so interesting, the dynamics. I just love how he even just won't call the people by their real name. He went ahead and called one of them 5 o'clock Shadowhead.
That's my favorite.
And they'll go ahead and ask the question. They're not offended. They think it's funny.
Yeah.
So
New Trent, Goblin King.
Goblin King.
Who knew he was Goblin King? That's the one where I was like, who's sitting there going that I'm confident they're calling me
exactly.
Goblin King.
I like you better than Trent Krim.
I like you better than the old than the old Trent.
I think that I really think Roy's whole speech during that press conference. I mean, again, we talk about the evolution of all these characters, but this is where I feel he really became, went full circle with everything. It was going back to where they originally were trying to get him to coach on the team, and then he said, "You had me at hello," and and had
Yeah.
that whole moment. But now, I mean, he had even practiced the press conference the one time with Keeley. And then this was just like his real audition now, his live audition within there. And I like that he went ahead and first addressed the room about, no, he doesn't condone it. So he shuts that down really quick. So it doesn't, because he
Yeah.
doesn't let it fester. He just shuts it down. But then he gives his own personal story. And that's where you really see him kind of open up about where he made a mistake as a rookie and things like that, and said something he shouldn't have. And it just, it's a lot of those kinds of things. We talk about like social emotional learning and those things, because you see a lot of self-awareness in this episode, understanding self-management, controlling themselves, where Roy was able to kind of keep things together. But it's really that social awareness, knowing that everybody's going to have different ways of handling things, different ways of processing. And I always would tell my students and everything, I said, you may experience the same situation as someone else, but it's never identical, no matter what it is, because I said the experience is going to be different from everybody. So you've got to give them, it's really about that grace and compassion. You really have to lead with that. And I think that's eventually, what I think the press conference did for that. And then I think bringing Colin and Isaac back together, because I know Isaac was just really hurt because they were so tight. And the one thing he wished he would have said, Colin was afraid to say it because he didn't know how he would react. Yeah. And I think it's just those kinds of things that we've always just got to let those know closest to us. You can tell us anything and really mean it. And, and I think, but it was just nice that they were able to kind of talk about it, but not talk about it while they're playing the video game. I said,
in their own way.
In
their own style.
I think that as a parent, I think the side-by-side talking is always easier than the face-to-face. So I've always thought, I've had great conversations when the kids were teenagers riding a bike, driving in a car, not face-to-face. I couldn't game with my son because I wouldn't have gotten off the first screen while he was up on level whatever. But I thought the side-by-side playing a video game is perfect. Like, I'm not ready to confront you head on with this, but we can have the conversation. And I hadn't thought about the fact when you mentioned Roy, this is really him coming full circle at this press conference. And what's interesting is it wasn't until what Nick said, he had to confront himself. Rebecca helped him confront himself in order to really make that full transformation. Nick and I often say, we talk about the Harvard Business Review that says self-awareness is the number one predictor of leadership success. And Roy's he's now fully self-aware. Thank you, Rebecca, for finalizing that.
Yeah, absolutely. No. And nothing will beat that, what Roy said that when he got called out, though. I have to just mention that one by Rebecca to get in her, and she used some choice words, but then when he looked at the team and he said, and none of you even said anything about it, I will never forgive you. And I'm just like, that's just great. And they said, well, he's right. We didn't really.
That was the perfect response. That so many people have been in that, where they've been chewed out by somebody in front of others. And that is such an awkward moment. And he turns it all on them. That was a good hearty laugh.
Yeah, that was good. That was very funny. So,
well, Dan, this has been awesome. You have brought it. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask, and no answer is fine. But is there anything specific you're looking forward to with season 4 of Ted Lasso?
I'm interested to see the whole angle with everything, how they're going to go ahead and take things, how the players that knew him those previous 3 seasons and are going to be embedded within, how it gels with the new team, or how this whole concept and the dynamic is going to go. Those seasons were just such feel-good stories and things, and I feel we need that again. I think it's just something that, I think the world needs, and I'm looking forward to that, just being able and seeing some new characters too. I wouldn't mind, if they have some of the actual women's soccer stars like Megan Rapinoe or anybody like that make a guest appearance or whatever, just to be. It would just, I don't know. I think it's just gonna be interesting dynamic how it's all gonna play out for sure.
Yeah. Knowing the circles that Jason Sudeikis finds himself in, I wouldn't be surprised, because he's definitely involved, very much involved with women's sports, and knows a lot of them personally. So
Right.
I can't wait to see. This has been awesome. Is there anything you want to plug? Anything you want to talk about? Let our audience know about you, Dan.
If you wanted to follow me, I'm on Instagram at Serve, Lead, Inspire Always. As Marnie mentioned in the beginning, I have a book, Becoming the Change: 5 Essential Elements to Being Your Best Self. And it's on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, wherever books are sold. And I just appreciate you both having me on the podcast. This has been great.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, so that we have a standard wrap, which is whistle, whistle. Game's over, but the leadership lessons keep on playing.
So as a reminder, you can find us here, there, and every effing where on social media at Lead It Like Lasso. And of course, leaditlikelasso.com. And we also have our snarky sidekick of a newsletter, workinprogress.ai.
Yep. So until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and keep leading it like Lasso. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.